Welcome, folks. Hopefully, from your screens, you'll see that you're in the Charge Syndrome Foundation webinar. We hope it's where you intend to be. We'll get started in a few minutes. Okay, folks, I think we're going to get started now. On behalf of the Charge Syndrome Foundation, the Board of Directors, and all the foundation staff and members, I want to welcome you this evening to our webinar titled Our Journeys Together, Grandmothers and Granddaughters with Charge Syndrome. My name is Susan Bashinsky, and I am fortunate enough to serve as a special advisor to the Charge Syndrome Foundation Board of Directors. This webinar is the third in our current series of webinars, and we think it's a really special one. We have two great ladies who will provide you with some wonderful information this evening. We have Fran Hannon from the state of Louisiana and Joy Stavanovich from the state of Florida, who will tell you their stories as the mothers of daughters who each have a daughter who experiences Charge syndrome. The way that this will work tonight is that if you would please add your state to the chat box so that we have some idea of the reach of our presentation this evening. If you're comfortable sharing your name, please put your name in the chat box as well. And if you have any burning questions for Fran and Joy at this time, go ahead and record them in the chat box or add those, if you will, to the chat box as the ladies are providing their presentations. Both Joy and Fran will individually share their stories, tell their truths of their journeys with kids with Charge syndrome. And then at the end of our session this evening, we'll have 15 to 20 minutes for question and answers. Minnie Lambert is with us tonight, and she is going to be monitoring the chat box and will lead that discussion for us at the conclusion. And our final slide will provide you with some resources about Charge syndrome and some upcoming Charge Syndrome Foundation events, just in case you are not aware of those things that are upcoming. So without further ado, I want to turn it over, please, to Fran Hannon, who will tell you her story about being. Fran, take it away.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I was not being allowed to unmute. Rarely am I speechless.
Sorry.
Just a bit about myself. By profession, before I retired and before Bean's birth, I was a speech language pathologist. And so didn't know anything about Charge syndrome, although my professional organization does have lots of information, American Speech Language and Hearing Association. So I would encourage you to check their website and make phone calls to them and ask any questions that you may have that I don't answer or Joy doesn't answer tonight. So let's talk about Bean. This is my Bean. Her name is Josephine. Josephine means shall grow. We just call her Bean. In the words of Shakespeare, though she be but little, she is fierce, and she is. My daughter is Jill, and at 5.5 months pregnancy, Jill was sent to a fetal medicine specialist because she had an anomaly in her placenta. She had one fetal artery instead of two feeding the placenta. And so in the words of the OBGYN, she said, not much to be concerned about. In most cases, it's fine. That visit turned into a nightmare, basically. The day of that appointment is burned into my brain. I was at work and got a panic call from my husband saying, come home and come home now. The kids are here and there's something up with the baby. So that being said, we gathered our troops and we powwowed and we decided that we would put our support behind Jill and Remy, whatever they decided to do, because the message from the specialist was pretty grim. Two alternatives were offered to them at that point. One was an amniocentesis at 5.5 months. That's a pretty dangerous thing for both mom and baby. And the other option was pregnancy termination, because what the fetal medicine specialist saw was an indication that there was something serious going on. What we learned at that point was that she had a cleft lip and possibly cleft palate. The word charge was never mentioned at that point. As a family, we supported Jill and Remy's let's proceed. Slide 2, please. Birthday. Jill had a scheduled C-section after laboring for 24 hours and half of another day. They decided to schedule her. Things weren't moving along. The news from the delivery room once Bean arrived was grim. They needed to do some life-saving measures. She had a tracheoesophageal fistula and an immediate surgery was called for. They had to assemble a team and the team was spread across the city, but fortunately all of them were available to do the surgery. It was scheduled to happen as soon as the team could be brought to the hospital where we were. Post-surgery, I remember the surgeon entering the waiting room. And as I said, as Minnie said, we travel as a pack. And there were many people in that waiting room, our family, Remy's family, that's my son-in-law, some of his family, some of my family, and some very close friends. And the surgeon looked around the room and said, do you want to step out so I can talk to you guys? And Jill and Remy both looked at each other and said, no, you can talk to all of us. And he did. He was a little bit surprised, but he did. Said the surgery was successful, that she had a good airway. He was confident that things would hold, and we moved forward. The mission then became for us, what do we do to help this family? For Jill and Remy, we didn't have a diagnosis. We just knew things were wrong. For Jill and Remy, social media became their friend. They started on the internet as fast as they could get a computer in their room looking, and we started scrambling to make sure they had what they needed to make them comfortable in the hospital setting. Bean went straight to the NICU. Everyone was saying, how can we help? We sent my husband's sister on a mission to find the right breast pump because Jill was determined that she was going to breastfeed this child with a cleft lip. And the only way she could do that was, of course, to express feeding. And so she had an NG tube and She pumped breast milk, I guess, until Bean was over a year old. But it worked, and we had the right breast pump for her to do that. Next slide, Susan. Thanks. So now we're in the NICU. It's been about a month, and a neonatal pediatrician who was not part of our team, but she sort of made her rounds in the NICU. She came by the bed one day, and now Bean was in a bed. Our only contact with her was through our hands. We could not hold her because she was hooked up to oxygen and every which way you could find. But this pediatrician said to us, "Are you talking to this baby? Are you reading to this baby? I don't care what you read. It could be National Geographic. Are you singing to this baby?" And when she said singing, my eyes lit up because Remy has been playing the ukulele for this baby since she was conceived. And she said, "Tell him to bring it." Well, the whole unit was in an uproar. It was an open unit with just curtains between the rooms. There were many sick babies, some more sick than Bean at that point. And this pediatrician wanted the ukulele, and she wanted Remy to play, which he did. The nurses were very nervous. Everybody in the unit was nervous until he played. And then the whole unit begged him to come back. It calmed the babies, it calmed the parents, it calmed the grandparents who were sitting, and it calmed the nurses. So for her stay at Lakeside Hospital, we had ukulele night, just about every night that Remy was available to do it. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, Susan, can you go back? So some tests were ordered for Bean that weren't available at this hospital to the degree that they needed to be. They needed to do a special MRI, and the machine was not available at Lakeside. And so they wanted to put Jill and the baby in an ambulance and send her to Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and then send her back. And Jill's neonatal pediatrician came in and he said, "You know what? This child belongs at Children's Hospital. They have everything she needs there. We don't want to lose you, but you need to go." And so moving day came next. We had to deal with a whole new team, a whole new set of routines, a whole new set of everything. Once again, Bean was in the bed. Our only contact with her was through hands and touching. We would let her play with our hair because that was the thing that she liked to do the most, even as a young baby. So at about a month and a half, she became a hairstylist, and that's what we let her do. With the move, it was really important that we established with the professionals, and when I say we, I mean Jill and Remy, that they established with the new team members that they wanted to be as much in control of Josephine's care as possible. They needed to establish trust. These physicians and nurses needed to hear what they had to say and to respect their wishes. Jill is a registered nurse. Remy is a process technician, which is just under being an engineer, and he approached things from a scientific point of view, looked at everything as gauges and pumps, and Jill, with her nursing background, knew what was best and could have conversations with the doctors and the nurses about changes, things that they didn't think were best. So that being said, we have now moved fast forward 3.5 months. We're talking about going home. Next slide, Susan. And then there's a reality of going home. Many of the nurses came in, and because of Jill's background as a nurse, talked with her about what going home meant. You are going to need help. You are going to have to provide guidance to the help that you get. You may or may not get in-home nursing. You're going to have oxygen. You're going to have medication regimes. You're going to have, and so even the picture of going home, which is what all of us wanted her to do, looked grim. But we did it. Managed the medical equipment. It was all delivered Somebody went in and made sure that the house was ready. We were having a problem finding the right stand for the feeding pump in Jill and Remy's house. So Remy pulled out one of his music stands and our feeding pump went on the music stand, and that's where it stayed for as long as we were using that pump. Jill organized her medicines and her schedule. Remy put up a huge chalkboard in the kitchen so that she could put the schedule down so that if she were napping, whoever was with her, whether it be the home nurse or one of the grandparents or an aunt or an uncle or a friend who was staying with her, would know what came next, didn't have to wake her up from her nap. So it all worked out. And we made it home, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing to be home. One of the nurses said to us, when you're home, it's your germs. You're dealing with your own germs. You're not dealing with hospital germs. And that makes it much better, because we know we have medically fragile children who, that's a really important thing. Okay, Susan, next slide, please. Enter the Charge Foundation into our lives. Leaving the hospital, we had a clinical diagnosis from 2 geneticists of Charge syndrome. With the clinical diagnosis of Charge, Jill and Remy, once again, hit the internet, hit social media, looking for support, and they found it in the Charge Foundation. I cannot tell you how valuable that support was. It was everything they needed, to the point that Meg Hefner asked them to send pictures of Josephine's ears and said, you have a clinical diagnosis, but I'm telling you this child is a Charge child. So the support was there, and it was wonderful for Jill and Remy to have that support at their beck and call 24/7. It was great. Fast forward, it's Josephine's now 2, just past her 2nd birthday, and we attended our first conference. It was mind-opening for all of us. And we attended in a pack, both sets of grandparents, an uncle, a cousin, and everybody went to sessions and everybody met people. And the support that we felt in that weekend, that long weekend, it was just, I cannot tell you how valuable that was. So much so that we couldn't wait to get to Dallas in 2 years, and are saddened that we're not going to get to go to Arizona this summer, that we have to do it a different way, but we'll do it. We will do it. It was being surrounded by a group of people who understood. In Remy's words, Bean found her peeps and she loved being with them. Not sure if that's when we met Katrina and Liliana. Probably in Dallas is when we met them. Okay, next slide, please. These are the words that 6 years later, I can honestly say describe my Bean. She's smart and curious and cuddly and funny, and she's a character, and she's creative, and she's cute, and she's caring, and she's lovable, and she's capable of winning everyone's hearts and making you smile. Next slide, Susan, please. This is Bean then, in those early and scary days. And this is Bean now, trying to fit in the bathtub that was made for the doll. On the left, you will see entrance of 2 new family members. Chase was born in 2019, is 2 and is the little sister. And she and Bean are fast friends and get along extremely well. And then they have some sibling stuff going on. And then in 2021, Kaya came along. She's the furry friend. But now we're all one big happy family. And the pack is very happy with where we are. Next slide, please, Susan. I asked family, extended family, and friends to give me one word, which was hard for almost everybody, one word that described Bean when they found out there was a problem with her, regardless of when it was, whether it was after she was born or when we found out that there were problems, and one word that describes her now. And you can read down this list, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them. One inquisitive. That was my son, Dean's uncle. And I said, Christopher, that's a curious word. Why are you saying inquisitive? And he said, Mom, I'm an attorney and I have an analytical mind. And I had 1,000 questions or more. And so I wanted to know everything. And then there were times I wanted to know nothing, but my inquisitiveness made me wonder about this child that had just come into our lives. And then he said he was grateful, because when we see Bean 6 years later, there's a lot to be grateful for. And the final one is hopeful and confident. And I'm going to read to you a script that my daughter-in-law, Christopher's wife, gave to me. I get emotional when I do this. I'm going to try not to do that tonight, but I just think that her words are powerful. So her word was hopeful then, hoping in the beginning that she would survive those first few days, hoping Jill and Remy would have strength to keep going, hoping things would be okay during and after surgery, hoping that she would be able to leave the hospital, hoping to adjust once at home, hoping they would figure out what those scary episodes were when she would turn blue, stop breathing in the middle of family dinner, hoping that even more surgeries would turn out okay, that Jill and Remy would not resent Chris and I and our 3 children, and they don't. And then something along the line, hope started turning, somewhere along the line, hope started turning into more of confidence. Confidence as her physical issues were addressed, and I saw her become more comfortable and relaxed in her body and not seem to struggle as much in that way. And Remy grow into the most, Jill and Remy grow into the most incredible, strong, and capable parents who time and again rose to the challenge of hurdle after hurdle with no guidebook, but were led through instinct and perseverance to advocate and to fight for their child, to give her what she needed to keep growing and to conquer hurdle after hurdle, confident as Bean started naming the letters on my shirt at a very young age, and confident as she started school and started putting things in her mouth and then started eating yogurt, because she is tube fed primarily. On Mother's Day, I had the opportunity that I haven't had in over a year to really spend some time with her. I felt like I was talking to my middle child. I heard her speak nearly as much as sign. She spoke with focus. She tried to make me laugh, making her dinosaur toy try to eat my pizza frequently. She asked me questions and waited patiently for my answers. She was interested in what I had to say. She kept trying to make me laugh over and over again. Her humor amazed me. And that's Bean, confident and 6 years old. And that's my story.
Fran, thank you so much. This is Susan again. We could hear your love and your care for your daughter and the amazing Bean throughout your story. I think that the emotions and the stories and the fear and the love and the hope, they will resonate with all the relatives who are participating with us tonight, not only grandparents. And so thank you for a beautiful chapter 1. I would like to now turn this over to Joy Stavanovich for chapter 2 for another beautiful story. So Joy, floor is yours.
Hi, how are you? Okay, do you want to put the first slide, please? Hi, I'm Joy. I'm coming to you from Sarasota, Florida. I am the mother of Katrina Michael. She's up in the left-hand corner, and that's my granddaughter, Liliana. My husband up in the right-hand corner, and down in the right-hand corner is my older daughter, Valentina. And then just Lily and I in the middle. And if you could go to the next slide. And then I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our personal journey. I thought this was a good one. It's Lily and I at Ringling in Sarasota looking out the window because she's on a journey and we're all behind her on that journey. That's just an index. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this one is Lily's pre-labor and delivery. when she had a lot of care, and she had an anatomy ultrasound during pregnancy, and it showed a slightly enlarged kidney, but there was no concern with the pediatrician. And when they went in, when they went into labor, Trini was at full term, and they had a midwife come in, but they were in a hospital, trauma hospital. And when Katrina, they didn't know that Lily's umbilical cord was short. So she was in laboring for like 24 hours. And when she delivered, she started hemorrhaging, and she had a full uterine inversion. And they called a rapid response. So I was in the waiting room, and my older daughter, which is a physician, was in there with Lily and her husband. And she sent me a picture of Lily. And the next thing she said was, I heard rapid response, and people started running, and they started shutting doors. And she sent me a picture and said, "Run back, Mom, I'm losing Katrina." So she hemorrhaged, and they ended up taking her to surgery, and they gave her 4 blood transfusions. And the cord was short, so that was the reason for that. And Lily went, Lily came to us. They handed us Lily, and then they all ran back with Katrina. If you want to go to the next slide. I got through that one without crying. And so the next one was the diagnosis. We were all concerned with Lily more so than, with Katrina, because what she had just went through, that major trauma. So the next day we were all in the room, and Katrina's pediatrician came in. And for some reason, she had this wonderful pediatrician that works with special needs kids. Her name's Dr. Blanco. She's out of Johns Hopkins. And she came in and she started doing her comprehensive newborn exam. And if you can see in the picture where Lily's mouth has a little bit of an asymmetric smile, she noted that, and she noted that she had the flipped ear, the charge ear. And she said, she looked over at Katrina and she said, get Lily on the insurance, because you're going to be spending a lot of time out at Johns Hopkins, all children's. And to us, we really didn't understand that. We were just kind of like, okay, maybe she's going to need, something little, Then the weeks and months and years following the initial examination has resulted in Lily being followed by 32 different doctors, revealing profound deafness, blindness in one eye, heart defects, absent semicircular canals, and an extensive list of medical conditions. Lily has been through 20 procedures and just had her 5th birthday. Lily's longest surgery lasted 4 hours. These procedures have taken place between Johns Hopkins All Children's in St. Pete and Cincinnati's Children's Hospital in Ohio. Lily is fed via feeding tube, and my daughter administers medication throughout the day, and Lily requires oxygen when she sleeps. And that's the diagnosis. Go ahead to the next one. So this one is about lifestyle changes. Right after Lily was born, Katrina's husband separated from Katrina and Lily when Lily was 2 weeks old. Lily and Katrina came home to live with her father and I. With no time or energy to face conflict over the material items, everything was left behind, including her nursery. We just told them, take everything. Our main focus was Lily. Our family knew Lily's health was our priority, and we quickly made some living adjustments, such as moving my elderly mother. She was living with us. We were caring for her. We moved her up north with other family members. And we quickly sold our 2-bedroom condo on the top floor and purchased a larger 3-bedroom condo on the first floor to accommodate Lily's extensive medical equipment and deliveries. The ground level also provided Katrina some relief while carrying Lily, her feeding bag, and mini oxygen tanks while attending her many doctors and therapy appointments. We went out and purchased a vehicle for Lily and Katrina to accommodate her special needs, stroller, and other medical equipment. She had left her car as well. Our retirement goal quickly changed to providing what we can to help Katrina and Lily transition into their new lifestyle. And then that's just Lily with one of her walkers. Go ahead to the next slide, please. And then this just has some pictures. Again, my daughter Valentina up in the left, just listening to Lily's lungs when she came to visit. My husband and I in the right after a surgery in the hospital. Lily in the bottom left in ICU after she had just had a big surgery. And then in the right hand is my sister from Anchorage, Alaska. And then you can see her therapy swing in the back. And so Katrina, being a strong, independent 23-year-old when Lily was born, quickly took the lead in searching for resources. She has devoted her life to become an advocate for Lily. If you listen to Katrina discuss Lily's medical conditions with her many doctors, you'd wonder if Katrina also attended medical school. I, my husband, and our oldest daughter, an internist, have all been there for Lily when needed. We have all sat in the surgery waiting room, monitoring the surgery board beside Katrina, often wondering where she finds her super strength not to break down. I often had to walk away to cry in the chapel, away from my daughter, only to return to hear my daughter discussing Lily's surgery outcome professionally with her surgeons. This charge holds a very special meaning in our home because it means our girls are coming home. Next slide, please. When Lily was 1 year old, my husband and I attended our first Charge Syndrome conference with Katrina and Lily in Orlando. We did not know what to expect. I actually teared up when I first entered the conference. To see other children and adults with Charge and their loving families and caregivers, just to know that these people understand was amazing. The professionals, families, and volunteers were full of resources, and the connections with other families filled my heart with joy. With notebooks in hand, we all split up to attend the various workshops. The information was excellent. I was truly relieved to know our daughter and granddaughter were now part of a larger community. You can actually feel the love and see the strength in other Charge families. Next slide, please. These are just some tips that are just coming from me that I kind of thought might help some new grandparents. One of the first things is attend the Charge conference and learn about Charge syndrome. It really helped us. Join the Charge Grandparent Facebook to share joy, concerns, grief, and common interest. Attend the grandparent breakout session at the conference to interact with other grandparents. And when you're with your grandchild, enter their world. This is a big one for us. We like to put ourselves in her world and be the odd person. Encourage communication. If your daughter is deaf, which Lily is profoundly deaf, we learn sign language. We also attend deaf dinners. So that way we're in her world. Let go of any anger, sadness, or denial and accept your grandchild's disability. Appreciate the miracles. Offer any physical, financial, emotional, or spiritual support you can to your child and grandchild. And then give lots of kisses and just enjoy the beautiful journey. Next slide, please. So what I've learned through my personal journey, through Lily has taught me the true meaning of life. She has forced me to slow down in order to notice the little miracles. I'm sorry. Working really hard every day toward goals that others take for granted can be achieved. And it's not our place to compare and decide what is considered normal. And that love can be nonverbal. And without her ever speaking or hearing the words spoken. And then what I've learned through Katrina, unconditional love, strength, leadership, and perseverance with no sleep and being the sole caregiver for Lily 24/7. Katrina volunteers for various leadership roles, such as the Charge Syndrome Foundation Parent Liaison for the state of Florida, Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital Advisory Council member, Deafblind Collaborative of Florida and U.S. Virgin Islands, Family Partners for the Deafblind of Florida and the U.S. Virgin Islands founding member, the National Family Association for Deafblind F2F project co-facilitator of Family Call, and Lily and her mom, Katrina, will be representing Speak Now for Kids Child Advocacy Network to raise awareness for the unique challenges children and families face in our healthcare system. These roles are all currently being fulfilled by Katrina, while she manages Lily's medical appointments, medical insurance, paperwork, and physical needs. And then I just wanted to throw in that during the COVID-19 pandemic, Lily's therapies have moved to teletherapy. So Katrina is also, since Lily is immunocompromised, and she's a sole caregiver, she's now performing all her therapies, her occupational, speech, vision, deaf mentor therapy sessions as well at home and homeschooling. And I think that's the end of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Joy.
you.
Thank you for sharing your truth. Don't apologize for your emotions.
Sorry.
I'm trying, no, don't be sorry. It's true. I'm trying to turn on my camera. This is Susan again, and I can't get the camera on. But it, maybe now, there we go.
Go.
And again, like I said to Fran, I think your story, Joy, resonates with the parents on the call. I think the other grandparents on the webinar, but other relatives too. And I think both of you, we genuinely, from our hearts, thank you for opening your lives and telling your truth tonight, because you have to be concerned. And we said this together when we were waiting for the webinar to begin. You're worried about 2 generations of girls.
Yes.
And that's different. I'm not saying it's more, I'm not saying it's less. I'm just saying it's certainly different than parents who are worried about 1 generation. You're worried about 2. And your concern just comes through our computers and through the screen. So I know we have questions. I'd like to turn it over to Minnie. We've got time for lots of questions. Minnie, you want to take it away, please?
I just want to say one thing about Joy. Joy, I cheated. I cried because I read through my story, the end of it, many times before I had to go on screen. So I cheated, but I cried with you at that last point.
Oh, you're so sweet. Sorry.
So, Susan, we don't really have any questions in the chat right now, but, you know, in the beginning, when you ask everybody to say where they were from, we have people from California, Louisiana, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Florida, another family from California, and then we also have someone all the way from Canada. You know, Suzanne Chin, who is one of our state liaisons out of New York, Fran, she said she'd love that now and then list of words and comparisons from your family members. And we also have lots of folks that have thanked you guys for, you know, sharing your experiences and your beautiful grandchildren. And, you know, it's okay to cry because I always cry. So.
Like I said, I cheated. I cheated.
I should have done that.
No, crying is love. That is not weakness. That is love. That is love. So, but Susan, I don't see any other questions in there right now. I will say that we do have a lot of other grandparents that are attending tonight. And when I first was reading through the list, I was like, wow, some of these names I've never seen before. And then when they answered in the chat that they were grandparents as well, you know, it gave us also a different list of attendees tonight for people that we haven't been able to reach out to in the past. So I thank you both, you know, for coming in and sharing your stories with us. So Susan, I don't see anything else, so I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, well, I'll ask a couple of questions, and I will also, I want to add my thanks to those of you who are participating in the role of a grandparent or a step-grandparent or another extended family member. I think each of you, Joy and Fran, you talked about, you know, you want to embrace all the little miracles and celebrate those miracles. But I think you also both expressed the fact that there is sadness, there is worry, there is fear, there is anger, there are lots of negative emotions. And although you're not getting those Bean and Lily yet. You have, I'm sure there are moments, even if they're small moments in time, when you see those from your daughters. And I think, can you offer our attendees tonight any suggestions about how you try to support your daughters, and in your case, Fran, Remy, as well, your son-in-law, to work through that, and to communicate that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, it's okay. And I'll shut up so you can talk.
I, I'll take that first, just because I want to do a shout out to Jill and Remy as a team. And Joy, my heart goes out to you, because I know that Katrina has quite the job, but with your support and your husband's support, that's what she needs. But Jill and Remy are quite the team, and what my interactions with them, and I think my husband's interactions with them, and most of the family's interactions, we are careful about the words that we use. And I'll give you an example. Several months ago, Bean had an accomplishment. She was reading. First grade level was measured, and she's in first grade. So I said to Jill, think about how blessed you are. And before I could get the rest of my statement out, being a speech language pathologist, to have a child reading at grade level who has the issues, the sensory issues that she has, that's quite an accomplishment. And Jill said, Mom, I don't feel blessed. Please don't use that word. I don't feel blessed. And it was sort of a wake-up call for me to really carefully choose the language that I use, because what I, as a grandparent, see as a blessing for this child who has so many medical issues is really not a blessing for the family. Now, are they proud of her because she's reading? Absolutely. But to call her life a blessing with all they have to do, the doctor's appointments, the physical therapy, the occupational therapy, the fact that Jill's now a homeschool teacher, all of those things. So just choosing your language carefully. I am rarely speechless. Sometimes I am speechful, and I shouldn't be, but I've learned to just really think about how I want to express what I'm feeling to them as a team. They support one another really well, and they have a lot of support from both families. I didn't get into that with the group, but I just think, thinking about what you're going to say before you say it to them with regard to anything that goes on with these kids is really important.
Thank you, Fran. Words matter. Words matter. Words are so important. Thank you for that
Absolutely.
piece of wisdom. Joy, anything you want to add to Fran's comments?
Yeah, our situation, since Lily lives in our home, I mean, I just kind of monitor Katrina from afar, because she's one of these people that just does it all herself. You know what I mean? And of course, I mean, I'm kissing Lily constantly and playing with her, but she takes the brunt of all the therapies, and, all day long there's Zoom. I'm walking around and in my nightgown, I got to hide out because she's on Zoom doing therapies and things. But I mean, she's just kind of our whole world. We've kind of changed, everything revolves around Lily, and it's kind of been that way for 5 years, and we just don't know anything different. I mean, it's been such a whirlwind for 5 years, and I'll just look at Trini sometimes and just monitor her, when she's about ready to fall on her face, then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take Lily for a walk. Is that okay? You know what I mean? And give her that time to decompress a little bit, which she doesn't even want to give me that time. So, we just kind of help out that way. We just do whatever we can to make it easier on her.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. I think just the comments that these grandmothers are sharing really highlight for all of us how even little girls with the same syndrome, they are so different from one another. And you all know that every child is different. We were talking the other day when we were preparing for tonight, and I was reminded, yes, every kid is different, regardless of any diagnosis, no diagnosis. Every kid is different. But I think when we talk about children and young adults who have the same syndromic condition like charge, people are sometimes too quick, in my opinion, to say, well, she has charge, so XYZ. And it's like, no. And you hear from the stories, these two stories, how different their homes, their living situations, their skills, their needs, their surgical history, on and on, how different every child truly is. Minnie, do we have any words of wisdom that any grandparents have put in the chat for tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Karen said that that was a great point, that we constantly have to applaud achievements, no matter how small. And it's tough when so many of our friends don't really understand the accomplishments of he swallowed food, he laughed, and things like that.
Excellent.
I think that Joy said it best when she said, recognize and celebrate the miracles, because there are many. In our 6 years, there are many miracles. You know, I remember the day we left the hospital and Bean has colobomas in both eyes, and in her left eye, it's the complete opening in that eye, the complete cleft. And when she hit the sunshine for the first time, that hand went up and covered her eye. And that's a miracle that she figured that out at 3.5 months, that she had to cover up that eye when she went out into the sunshine. It's a miracle. It was a small miracle. For us, it was a huge miracle, because who knew? Who knew she'd know how to do that? She did it. Nobody taught her that. It just happened. So that's a milestone for me. It's a miracle.
Yeah. If we have Lily, she just, you know, she's deaf and she's blind in one eye. She has a coloboma in the other one, but she can see it in one eye. So for her to learn something, it's a really big thing, being completely deaf and blind in one eye. So she today, you know, Trini was outside and she did tree, and Lily signed it back. She has about 3 signs that she knows, and when we see something like that, to us, we run around, and all the therapists are on, and we're like, she signed tree today, you know. So it's those little things. It's a big thing in our house, you know, just making that connection with her. You know, it's a form of communication, and it's wonderful. We're really lucky.
Yeah.
Great stories. Thank you both. Minnie, anything else from the chat box?
Yes, ma'am. Gail also had a comment that we just have to listen to our daughters, and when they want to vent or just talk about what is going on with their charge daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
and
I
it's
don't know you, but-
sometimes it's hard to just listen, but yeah, I'm not known to be speechless, as I said before, and sometimes it's hard to keep my comments quiet, but there are times when I know I have to. With Jill, I just have to let her vent. She just has to say it.
So let me pose a question to you two ladies, and it might not be fair. So if you feel like I'm putting you on the spot, just say I prefer to not answer that question. I would imagine, from my own personal experience, that there are times when you just need to vent and you just need somebody to listen. So what's available to grandmas and grandpas? Where do you find your support, and how do you keep going?
Go ahead, Joy.
Okay, so when Lily was first born, I had about an hour drive to work. So a lot of times I'd be crying in the car on the way to work, you know, and I had a really good best friend that would listen to me when I got there. That poor lady, like, she went through everything, you know, and I would just have to hold my composure at work. And I didn't want to do that in front of Katrina. When I came home, I had to act like a rock, because, you know, I had to be there for her. And so I think I did a lot of it just in the car. And then, you know, like I said, I would run to the chapel, you know, whenever she was having a surgery. I mean, I don't know how Katrina did it. She would just sit there, so, you know, not shedding a tear. And I would just walk away and go in the chapel and cry and write in that little book, and you know what I mean? And then get myself together and come back and support her. she's a lot tougher than me. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I did it.
Yeah, I didn't go into the story of our connected families, but my husband and Remy's dad have been friends since they were 13. I met Lori and Josephine's other grandmother when we were in high school. And so our families have a really strong bond, and we lean on each other a lot. You know, Jack was used to listening to me talk about a difficult client that I had when I was in private practice, or listening to me talk about difficult families at school when I was working in a school setting. So he was my sounding board, and Lorian and I would cry together and laugh together and pray together. And that's really where we found support. I also have two sisters who I had to explain a lot to them, because fortunately or unfortunately, because of my professional background, I did a lot of research. I tried to find out as much as I could as soon as we got the clinical diagnosis. And so I would sort of explain to them, because I wanted them to understand. I didn't want them to feel awkward around Josephine. I didn't want them to shy away, to feel like they couldn't contribute or help. So I have a niece who's a pharmacist, and I leaned on her a lot. So basically, family and friends, you know, my friends were very good about listening, and I would tell them, if you don't want to listen anymore, then tell me to shut up. It's okay. Because I needed to talk about it. I needed to vent. I needed a shoulder to cry on. I needed a shoulder to lean on. I still do, even 6 years. And with things going well, watching Bean's cognitive growth, but yet watching the struggles that her family goes through with insurance and medical bills and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's always like a certain where you worry, you know. I worry about Katrina and Lily, you know. Just that's a, you know, it's not a sadness anymore. It's just a worry. You know, what's her future? What, you know, she's a single mom. She's a young girl, and that's one that's always in the back. As far as, you know, the anger and all of that stuff, I really wasn't angry. I didn't have that. You know, I had some sadness and more fear. And now there's just a worry, you know, that's always there. You know, I always worry about my daughter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for those honest, I mean, those are raw emotional answers. And I think both of you make the point that you have to take care of your daughters and help them take care of their daughters, but you have to take care of yourselves too, in order to be able to do that. I want to respect everybody's time, so maybe I'll ask one more time. Minnie, you got any new questions?
We have a really great comment from Ronald in the chat pod, and Ronald says, our grandson is nearly 4 months old and he has never been able to come home yet. He's in Children's Hospital in New Orleans most of his life. We feel so overwhelmed and helpless. It is very comforting to hear these other grandparents have to share what these other grandparents have to share tonight. Very glad we signed up for this webinar. So I wanted to share that because that's really important. And then Suzanne Chen said, Joy, you are my mom. She did the exact same thing. We were in the hospital in the chapel. And then Laurie was commenting to Fran that she had wondered about how the friendships had evolved and all of those kind of things. And she was thankful for you sharing that. Tabitha has just now commented that she is a recent graduate deafblind intervener. Would you both be able to share a tip for a new staff member going into the home with a family who has a child/grandchild with charge? Except proceed with caution.
Choose your words carefully.
You know, I guess I would say, if you haven't already tapped the resources available through the foundation, then by golly, do it. And would encourage you to seek out the Deaf Blind Project in your state, and get in touch with those folks, because they have a wealth of information and help to us from a very early age. So in the state of Louisiana, those two, well, the Charge Foundation in any state, but certainly in the state of Louisiana, contacting the project manager for the Deaf Blind Project here, who just happens to be housed in my graduate school I graduated from. And so we have been able to really connect there, and it's been a great resource for us.
What state are they in?
She didn't say.
We really need them in Florida bad.
Ontario.
Well, she's in Canada, so that's where, most of the interveners that we know are at. You both are right here in the Southeast with me. So we all know that we have a really big push for that. But I do think that's a great question. Anybody that would be new, that would be coming into your home, what would you feel like, even if it was a new occupational therapist or a new, PT, or somebody that had never met your child or your grandchild before, what would be the first thing that you would, want to say to that person if you could give them a buzz, in the ear?
Rand, do you want me to go?
Sure.
So since Lily is deaf and she's blind in that one eye, she would just have to be patient and make sure that she's right in her bubble when she's teaching her. We have a lot of people that are kind of in a distance, and they forget, they start talking to her, and they, just to be right in her bubble where you teach, so she can, just take your time and get to know Lily's, what she needs to learn. It's really important with her.
Yeah, I would support that. Some therapists want to come in and just roll right in and get started. And I would say, observing the child and the family in their natural setting and watching how the parents interact with this child, what works and what doesn't, because you can come in with all the equipment and all the toys and all the bells and whistles that you have, but if you're not meeting that child's need, for instance, being right where she needs you to be, to see and to hear or to touch. So I would say, observe first, make it a point. You may feel you have not succeeded in your session, your goals that you set for that session by observing, but it's really critical to get a feel for how this child learns best and how the family helps this child to learn.
The other thing that's really important with Lily is she has a lot of internal things that you can't see. A lot of people just see a really cute little girl, and she has a lot of things going on internally. So some days she'll get up and it's just not a day that she feels well. And, her therapist, as you work with them and they get to know her, they can tell, that it's not going to be a good day to work with her.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like Fran said, just really getting to know the child.
Yeah.
Thank you both. In the interest of trying to respect everybody's time, I'll put up a final slide here that does have what we think, we being the Charge Syndrome Foundation, are some excellent resources. The Syndrome Foundation itself. There is a Charge State Family Liaison. Joy mentioned that Katrina is one for the state of Florida. Fran is one for the state of Louisiana. We have one in most states in the US, not all. Walk and Roll for Charge is coming up May 15th. Get a team together. We have our symposium this summer, July 16, 17, 18. The show must charge online, and registration is now open. We have ERAP, the Recreation Assistance Program, accepts rolling applications. We have a new family assistance program to help families partially reimburse them for trips for medical needs, medical testing, medical treatment. That's a rolling application. Charge It for Charge, lots of good resources. I will tell you, this program, this webinar has been recorded and will be archived and available through the Charge Syndrome Foundation website, so you can check it out and actually click on these links. Two more announcements. You will, after this evening's webinar, receive a link for an evaluation of this magnificent session. So please, would like to hear your comments, hear from you, because the evaluation also includes information about new additional webinars you'd like to see the foundation host. So we want feedback, and we'll share that, your praise with Fran and Joy. The last announcement is we have our 4th webinar in this spring series coming up June 16th, same time in your respective time zones. And it will be a panel of siblings. Actually, it's a panel of 4 brothers. So we could have a wild ride that night. We've got 4 brothers of kids with charge. Some are older, some are younger. I encourage you to join us for that. You will be getting a blast from the Charge Syndrome Foundation. With that said, I want to thank Joanne Lent for hosting the room tonight. Thank you, Joanne. Minnie, thank you for monitoring the chat box. But most especially, I want you all to give them a real and a virtual round of applause to Joy Stavanovich and Fran Hannon. You ladies were magnificent. You told your stories with truth and honesty and emotion, and we're very grateful. With that said, thank you all. We'll clap for Lily. We'll clap for you guys. I hope you all have a good rest of the week. Thank you both.
Good night.